You're listening to Oilersnation Radio, presented by the Nation Network. Subscribe for free on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Welcome to Oilersnation Radio, episode 129. I am Bag Milk here with Tyler Yaremchuk, Nation Dan, and Rick. We are going to discuss all things Edmonton Oilers and all things sports. Well, probably not. Tyler is watching a Florida game right now.
March Madness.
There might be a little bit of March Madness talk that bleeds in here as well. We shall see. First, I want to start off by thanking our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant out in Sherwood Park, Alberta. They are wonderful people with wonderful services and products. Follow them on Twitter at Sherwood Ford and on Instagram at Sherwood_the Giant. It is spring now. Maybe it's time to spring into a new vehicle from our friends at Sherwood Ford. Still waiting on those Broncos. Go. By the way, if you're listening to this, do us a favor. Hit Sherwood Ford up on social media. Again, Sherwood Ford on Twitter, Sherwood Ford_the Giant on Instagram, and be like, the boys from ON Radio want those Broncos. What's the holdup? I'm sure they would love the feedback. Tyler,
yes,
you got a fresh Sherwood Ford Giant question for us this week?
Always. The hot topic right now around Oilers Nation, it is one Tyson Berry. He's a hot guy, but there's a lot of talk about his future. So the Sherwood Ford Giant question of the week, not do you want to see Tyson Berry back as an Oiler, but simply, will Tyson Berry be an Oiler next season? That is your Sherwood Ford Giant question of the week.
Who wants to kick us off, boys? Who's the most bullish on Tyson Berry? Or who's the most anti-Tyson Berry? Dan, I'm looking at you. You're first up on my screen.
I think I'm probably the most anti-Tyson Berry on the podcast. It's not to say that I don't like what he's bringing to the team, and I'm happy to have him for the 2020 version or 2021 version of the Edmonton Oilers. But I think that he's going to get some smoke somewhere else, and good for him. And that's why he came to Edmonton to do what he did. If he does that, I think it's a silly decision because he's seen that the grass isn't always greener on the other side when he went to Toronto. That should have been a perfect scenario for him, and it wasn't. But Edmonton should be the perfect scenario for a guy like Tyson Berry. I just don't think we need to pay him like he's Oscar Klefbom.
Just what if you were to guess, Dan? Obviously, we have no idea. This is purely speculation. What's your walkaway point from Tyson Berry?
Tyler will give me some good numbers to go off of, I'm sure, but I think like anything over $4.5 million is probably where I'm going to walk away from him.
Wow.
I think $4.5 million would be the number where I'd be comfortable with him coming back. Again, you have to figure out the numbers, and Tyler will give me all the cap details as he does all the time, and he can never be questioned on his numbers.
No, Tyler's a math guy. Perfect. Tyler, you were surprised by Dan's answer. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think 4.5's a little low. For me, I set the cutoff at 5.5. I think if he's willing on a 3, maybe a 4-year deal to come in around $5 million, I would do it. 5.5, I think about it. Anything more than that, and I'm probably just letting him walk. And again, that's not a knock on anything Tyson Berry has done in his time so far here in Edmonton. I don't think anyone thought this fit could have been as perfect and gone as well as it has. He's been incredible. He's the highest scoring D-man in the league. No one, Dan, you can raise your hand. No one thought he was going to be leading D-men in scoring.
I said he was going to get 18 goals. Thank you very much.
Well, he's not. Okay, well, you're wrong there. He's not even getting goals. But he's having an incredible year. It's been great to finally have that top pairing, right shot, offensive defenseman. He's brought a lot. But with that being said, just because a guy has one good year here doesn't mean you suddenly overpay for him. And he came here on a 1-year deal to boost his value and sign a big ticket. And if there's a team out there that's going to offer him 6x6, I just don't think that's smart business for the Oilers. So if the contract makes sense, absolutely, you bring this guy back, and although Bouchard is waiting, you can have 2 skilled offensive defensemen on your roster at the same time. But where I draw the line is going 6 years or $6 million with the guy. You need to be mindful of that. You do have other offensive options on your blue line. None of them are nearly as good as Tyson Berry, but it's not like you're going to be completely depleting this decor by letting him walk. So my answer to the question, will Tyson Berry be an Oiler next season? Yes. Because I think at this stage, I think Tyson Berry, like you said, Dan, might go, the grass isn't always greener. And yes, I'll make a couple million less staying in Edmonton, but I'm still going to be paid very, very well. And I'll get to have a ton of fun playing with the best players in the world.
Dan, I didn't get your answer. Tyson Berry here next year? You said no?
I don't think so. I like what Tyler said is all true. He's a good guy to have on your team, but some team is going to pay him. We have dumb GMs. This is a low level UFA class coming up. Tyson Berry is if he continues to be in the top 3 of scoring and defense, somebody's going to pay a stupid amount of money for that. It's just the way it is.
We can't sit there and assume that because he was just offered more and came here.
Mm-hmm.
Like he turned down bigger. He already turned down bigger money to come here. So to sit here and assume that he's going to sit there and try and take us for $1 billion or whatever, I think that's just like overly worried Oiler fans. Like that's, everything's gone wrong in the last 10, 20 years. Doesn't matter. We finally got Chris Pronger. It was a fantastic year. And wham, what happened in the summer? We can't have nice things anymore. It's that's kind of what I think some people think still. We have 2 of the greatest players in the world right now. Things are much different than they have been. Yep. We need to kind of wash our hands of that old overly worried feeling we've had from, the last 10, 20 years, whatever it is. We need to walk around like we have a really good hockey team. Having said that, I agree with Tyler. It's going to be up or down where it depends on his contract.
I don't think I'm saying anything to the contrary. I'm saying that if Tyson Berry is dumb, he's going to walk away. And I think he might just be one of those guys that wants to make some money.
But he just
I think it's a good situation.
But he just did the exact opposite.
So I think him coming here is him making a good decision for him to be able to make money.
That's what I mean, though. Is to sit here and say you think he's going to take the more money and probably not the smarter move in the long run. He just chose not to do that once. There's no real reason to think he's going to go back and go against his way. Who's to say he's not going to take 3 times 5 and let's roll and see what happens and take one more big contract at the end of it.
If he wants to win a cup, if he wants to win a cup, his best move, because no other contender is going to be able or willing to pay him north of $5 million, at least not that I've seen. So I think 3x5 here gives him his best chance to win.
Here's the thing.
And I wouldn't sign him any longer than 3 years either, though.
Tyson Berry, Nuge is the same boat. They could get more money somewhere else. But how badly do you want to Taylor Hall yourself on a fucking Buffalo Sabres?
Yeah.
Good example.
Listen, that's not a shot at Halsey. He chased that bag and he got it. Things aren't so fun right now. That's all. So Rick, what's your answer to the question? Tyson Berry here next year or no?
You know what? Ken Holland has proven anything in his time here. He's not going to overpay. And I know there's 2 contracts people stand up and shout about right away, but he really hasn't chased anybody in terms of paying him. So I think if he stays, it's going to be in a system where we think if it's well. So I would give him 6, but that's on a 1-year contract. 5.5 over 2 or 5 times 3. That's about the only 3 options I'm going. And I don't think Holland's going to be much different.
I've got a question that this has nothing to do with anything. Where the fuck did you get that hat? Rick is wearing an Oilers Nation internet company hat. I've never seen that
last
before.
week, I think.
How do I not have this hat? I have 9,000 Nation Gear hats, and I do not have
been rocking that for a while.
Yeah.
This is really upsetting. I'm going to go burn Little Brick to the ground unless I get stocked up on hats.
We're not in the office for a year.
Unbelievable.
I don't think they ever made it to the office anymore, but those are the good old days when everything was down there.
Yeah.
Maybe the bad old days if you had to deal with it.
Yeah. Shout out to the accountants that had to deal with us treating ourselves. Back to Tyson Berry though. Puckpedia.com career earnings as of right now, $33 million. So he is by no means destitute, regardless of what happens. Here's the thing. If I had my ideal scenario, my ideal, Tyson Berry would sign an extension, but it would be 2 years. The guy's turning 30. We've got Bouchard coming up in the wings. We've got Bear coming up. I think having 2 years of Tyson Berry mentoring / a guy like Bouchard, especially who's an offensive defenseman in his own right, watching how he moves the puck and how he makes choices with it, that would be super beneficial. I think down the road, having Evan Bouchard learn from Tyson Berry is a great idea. Now, the problem is, of course, money. The problem is that Tyson Berry right now is a fucking apple tree, and he's collecting assists all over the place. He had 2 more last night. They were secondary assists. I don't know if we're allowed to cheer for those or not.
No.
They still count on the points total. And the guy is absolutely rolling right now. The thing that's interesting to me before I give my answer, I like ranting. The thing that's interesting to me about Tyson Berry is The Oilers signed him to do exactly what he's doing right now. And some people, Strud said it yesterday on Real Life, some people are upset that he's putting up points en masse just because they come on the power play. It's very, very odd. Very odd. We've always wanted a power play quarterback, and Clefbaum did a great job. Darnell did a fine job in his time as well. But they're not Tyson Berry in terms of getting points up on the board on the power play. So I don't know how you win with this fan base sometimes.
We just went over like the last 2 years of complaining that those power play points should still mean something because they're still going to the net, because that's what everyone is saying about Connor and Leon. They're like, all they get is power play points. Well, no, that's still goals and stuff. So at one point we're using that argument, and then all of a sudden those same people are going to use the exact reverse of that argument and tell you that that's why fucking Barry's getting. It makes no sense at all.
What we need to do is we need to remove power play points from everyone's totals. And if you got power play points and goals that resulted in a win, those are now voided. They do not count. It's only 5-on-5. Anything else is just for pure entertainment, and they don't count. That's the new rule I'm putting in because that's apparently what some people want. I don't know. To answer the question, I think he is here next year. I do. I think Ken Holland is the kind of GM that really likes veterans. And the contract's going to be scary. It's no doubt going to be scary. I'm nervous about what it's going to look like. Same with Nuge, though. You know, if Nuge gets done here right away, I'm going to be really interested to see what that looks like. And the thing is, I think Barry will be here. Answer the question, yes. So we got 3 yeses and a Dan no, I believe. Is that correct, Tyler? You keeping score?
Yes.
No?
Listen, with the flat cap, I think you're gonna see a lot more guys like we maybe see moving on, sticking around for 2 or 3 years to get out of this flat cap and getting one more kick at a big contract. And that's what's going to happen with Nuge. And that's what's going to happen with Barry.
I think the shallow UFA pool is what's going to affect it the most for this offseason.
But if you don't have money to spend, you don't have money to spend.
I know, but there's teams that have money to spend. Like Taylor Hall comes off Buffalo's books next year, so Tyson Berry goes and fits in Buffalo. I don't know. Like it's just
that's exactly
seen Buffalo.
Well, here's the thing, though. It depends. It's. I'm going to follow Dan down this rabbit hole for a second because it depends. I'm not saying he is because I have no idea. I've never met Tyson Berry. I've only looked at him on a TV screen. Is he a guy who chases a bag?
No.
I don't know. This year he did not. Frank Seravalli, he's coming up on the podcast right away. We'll ask him about it. Tyson Berry took a pay cut or a lesser offer to come to Edmonton. Now, did he do it in anticipation of chasing a bag if Connor and Leon pumped his point totals up? I don't know. I guess we're going to see. That's the question that we have to figure.
I think at first Tyson Berry's intentions were, I'm coming here to secure the bag, let these guys help me pump up my point totals, get my confidence back, then I'm signing for a ton of money, getting that career deal. I wonder if he's almost 30 years old, if he's sitting there going, I made a lot of money. I don't want to sign long-term and have it go sour in a situation like it did in Toronto where, 6 months into it, they're looking to trade me. He might just sit there and go, if Edmonton keeps the offer close for 3 years, when I'm 32, I can still go sign another contract, or 33, I can still go sign another contract like Kevin Shattenkirk did. Right. So I think there might have been a change of heart. He might be realizing how much fun he's having here and he might be more willing to take a discount.
It's romantic. I'm a business guy, and I wonder if that stuff kind of plays out, especially in these. And maybe you're right. Maybe by the end of a playoff run, there's a different feeling there. But I just don't think that 33 games into the season, that 1 year deal that he signed to be able to make that money, you assume, because it was a 1 year deal.
You're playing with two of the best players in the world. As much as dollars come into it, that's going to play part of it too, and the chance to win. So yeah, you've seen guys chase contracts, and look at almost all the UFAs from last year. Nothing's really worked out.
Well, in just changing gears away from Tyson Berry, if Ryan Nugent-Hopkins re-signs here, when
he re-signs here.
I agree with you. When, like Ryan Rishaug tweeted out yesterday, TSN Ryan Rishaug tweeted out that Nuge's agent and Holland had a very long discussion already. So just my point here was when Nuge resigns here, that's going to be a haircut. That's going to be him signing because he wants to be here, not because he's going to chase that back. So
but he's going to get that haircut anyways. That's just the matter of way things are right now.
I agree he would get a haircut, but like, listen, the reality is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is arguably one of the top 3 forwards that are available in free agency this year. Someone would overpay him more than he's making right now.
The Seattle Kraken would love to have him as their number 1 centerman, number 2
It's just like,
whatever it is.
For Nuge, though, I think he values the spot he's at, because how could you not?
Yep.
The guy played with absolute dog shit on this roster for 10 years now. You think he doesn't look at those 2 dudes he gets to play on the power play with and or at even strength and go, you know what, I'm in a pretty good spot here.
And versus the options he would have in Seattle with the expansion rosters.
Or anywhere else. Say Nuge goes to Buffalo to get the bag that Taylor Hall left behind. Like, I don't know, man.
Hey, and someone put it on Twitter this week too. That Hall may have been like a genius, right? So you're at a point where you're signing a 1-year contract. You're looking at who's going to be the best team in the league this year, because that's where you want to go, sort of, kind of. You don't know. So let's just sign with a team that's not going to make the playoffs. And then they're going to end up flipping you to a contender. And all of a sudden, now you're in a better situation. That's actually pretty smart.
I don't think he signed planning to get traded at the deadline, but it's not a bad plan B.
It's a pretty good.
Why else would he give himself a no movement clause on a 1-year deal?
Yeah.
I said the same thing right after he signed. I was like, no matter what happens, Halsey's in a good spot, because if Buffalo shits the bed, he's getting traded to a contender. The funny thing now is that Buffalo's got hopes and dreams of signing him to an extension. Get the fuck out of here. You think Taylor Hall's going to stay here after that?
They have to know. Everyone's going to leave, man. Who's going to stay there?
There's been a little bit of talk that Hall likes it there, and he's kind of tired of jumping around. That's what I've heard too. He wants somewhere to play for 8 years, and it's kind of close to home for him in Ontario. But I think it's the other way around. I think the Sabres would be idiots if they listened to him. Like, okay, if you want to come back here, we'll talk in July. But for now, we're taking our 2nd round pick and a prospect, Halsey. Get out of here.
Oh, for sure.
I agree with you. That's just good asset management. But what I'm saying is, if Taylor Hall chases the bag in Buffalo again, he has no interest in winning. That's my point.
Yeah.
So I actually like the move he made, because you know what? Say he gets traded to I don't know, I'm just throwing shit out there, Colorado. As if that's not a good landing spot at the deadline for Taylor Hall.
I think he goes to Boston.
Really? I think he's going to Long Island. They just lost Anders Lee. Yeah. They have the cap space to bring him in now without forcing Buffalo to retain a lot. I think he's going to end up in Long Island.
Could be besties again?
Are they going to live in the same apartment again?
That'd be nice.
Can you imagine Taylor Hall and Jordan Eberle on the Islanders going on a run to like the conference finals?
Yeah.
They could take care of Jordan Eberle's baby together. It would be like 2 men and a baby. Well, I know the missus is there somewhere as well, but like 2 men and a baby, it would be really nice. I like that.
Yeah. Then they can lose. Then they can lose in the finals to the team that traded them both.
Yeah, I like that.
Ooh,
we're making good plans here. Tyler, what time's Frank coming up? Right away?
Yeah, Frank is coming up in just a minute here, and Frank's appearance on the show will be brought to you by Cornerstone Insurance, the official insurance broker of Oilers Nation. You can find them online, cornerstoneins.com. Solid protection, sound advice, Cornerstone Insurance.
You're listening to Oilers Nation Radio, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts.
TSN's Frank Seravalli, and of course, he is one half of the DFO Rundown podcast. New episode out today, 48 minutes, nothing but trade talk and rumors. Frank, thanks for giving us some time today, man.
Yeah, good to be with you guys. Except, was that Tom Gazzola doing the voiceover?
it was Tom Gazzola doing the voiceover. Good to hear.
Yeah.
We're going to start you with our Sherwood Ford Giant question of the day. Will Tyson Berry be an Oiler next season? It's all the debate here in Edmonton.
I think he will be. Look, he's fit like a glove on that power play. He's been really productive. He's been producing at his average or just above his average of his career. And I think the big question mark for me this year was, would he be able to get the confidence back that he lost in Toronto? And I think it took a little while at the start. You know, that start was just a little bit slow. And since then, he's been so good. And he's been a big part of the Oilers offense. And with that shot and with his creativity on the power play, like, I don't know that you're going to find that on the open market. And so if you say goodbye to him, even though he's playing at a reduced number this year, I think the whole market's going to be down. So the Oilers have an opportunity to reinvent the expectations in terms of salary and maybe give him a 3-year deal or 4-year deal at the very most that makes sense moving forward.
Frank, the Oilers have some interesting decisions to make in terms of their free agents this year. I know I asked you about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on Real Life already. There's Tyson Berry. There's Adam Larson. If you were to guess, or maybe on something you've heard, how does Ken Holland kind of navigate this? Because those are three key pieces to the roster, and all three of them need new contracts.
Yeah, they are. And, you know, it's interesting. I was listening to Connor McDavid's comments after the game. If it wasn't last night, it was earlier in the week, just speaking to Nuge's importance to the team. And I couldn't help but feel like that was a little bit of an advertisement, if not a subliminal or subtle message to send to your manager, who's also obviously listening. I just don't know what makes sense number-wise and term-wise. Like, that's what I'm wrestling with in my own head. And also with watching RNH's production this season, it's been fine, but it could have been so much better. Like, he's been given so many opportunities playing with McDavid. You know, if he converts on 50% more, we're talking about way beyond a point per game player. And given that opportunity, and given that, you know, there's going to be a significant term and dollar commitment, I'd be thinking really long and hard about whether that's the best way to spend your dollars.
We're going to ask you the same question as Tyson Berry. What's your best guess on Nugent-Hopkins? Is he an Oiler next year?
Yes, I'm going to say he is, just because I think there's so many people pulling for him behind the scenes. You know, you mentioned McDavid. I just think that he's such a fabric of the team, part of that fabric, that I have a hard time envisioning him elsewhere. But I think, you know, maybe in his own head, or maybe in the head of his agent, they're going to just have to readjust and reimagine their own expectations in terms of, this was supposed to be that sort of next, you know, final big deal of his career. And it was supposed to be a home run. And the pandemic has come in and changed that expectation for not just Nuge, but so many other guys that were, you know, planning to hit free agency in 2021.
That's sort of the internal housekeeping that Ken Holland has to do as we move towards the deadline externally. What are we expecting from the Oilers? Is there a chance we see a big splash? Will it be depth moves, or will it just be, you know, keeping the old powder dry?
I'd be surprised if it's a big splash. And I don't, how much does this team really need depth moves? Like, they need a second line left winger and a second pair left shot defenseman. I don't consider those depth moves. And to me, with where this team is at, with the teams that are in their division, with the top flight talent they have, I'd much rather see them, if they're not going to fill one of those holes in a real meaningful and significant way, to just keep your assets, keep your prospects, keep your picks, see how you do in the playoffs. And then this summer and next season, I think, is the time that you do a little bit of surgery on this roster.
Looking around the NHL in general, I think this is going to be an interesting trade deadline, I should say. What are you predicting in terms of people shopping their draft picks? Because obviously prospects aren't playing like they normally would. Scouts aren't being able to see guys as they normally would. What would your sense be on teams being willing, maybe more willing to trade draft picks, or less?
I don't know that it's changed all that much. Teams are placing more of an importance on draft picks, I think, than ever before. And I think if you talk to the scouts, they're comfortable and confident in terms of what they've seen to this point. And yes, the viewings have been limited, but you got to remember that the scouting process is like 3, 4, or 5 years long for this draft class. They've been seeing these guys for a number of years, probably well before junior hockey for the most part. So they have a real good idea of where these players fit and land. And not to say, you know, not for nothing, there's still been play in European leagues. We still had a World Juniors. There's still been college hockey and play in the USHL. The WHL is back. The Quebec League has been playing, you know, in fits and starts for, you know, the bulk of the season. So it's really just the OHL that's been affected. And is it a perfect science? No, but scouting in general isn't either. So I think the scouts are pretty comfortable, and I don't know that we'll see a big change. Like, there's not going to be teams just, hey, you know, come take my first round pick. I don't need it anymore. I don't think it's going to work like that in the sense of teams' willingness to trade picks.
Frank, do you think that this trade deadline day, like the actual date is going to be the day to watch, or is it going to be this, the weeks leading up to it with the travel restrictions that are being placed on some of these players? Is that something that you think is going to affect trade deadline day itself?
Yeah, Dan, I'm really curious to see, is it going to be trade deadline or trade dudline? Because you wonder about that with the quarantine restrictions in place. And that also includes some US teams, because it's, depending on who and where you're trading with, you're talking about guys potentially driving from city to city. You're talking about all sorts of differences this year. And not to mention, it's also a shortened season. So what you're really dealing with, if the 14-day quarantine remains intact, and the Canadian federal government and the NHL are working together to reduce that from 14 days down to 7, no one's really sure if it's going to happen. The league is still optimistic. The GMs aren't holding their breath. But if you can reduce it, then that makes life a lot easier. But if not, you're talking make a trade on April 12th. They probably don't leave until the 13th, get to the next city, and then you start the 14-day counter. That's the 27th. And it's still probably going to take a couple days for that player to get up to speed after the 2 weeks, having not skated in 2 weeks. So then you're dealing with 10 days that you get a guy in your lineup in the regular season. So I do think that it's going to speed things up. I really wouldn't be surprised at all to see, this was actually a question from Tyler in our buy or sell with the DFO rundown. Will there be a trade in the next week? I would think that yes, at least one of these teams is going to pull the trigger in the next week, not wanting to wait until April 12th. The problem is you hear all these GMs say, hey, it's a priority for us to get this done, move as quickly as possible. But that also means that teams are hearing that and trying to charge more, which is delaying the whole process. So everyone understands what's at stake, and that's why the gears have sort of slowly ground this to a halt.
Sticking up in the North Division here, Frank, we touched on the Oilers. I think everyone kind of assumes it's going to be the Leafs and Jets as the two big buyers in this North Division. If you had to pick between one of them, which one is maybe in the best position to really load up at this year's deadline, or is it both?
I think it's both. I don't see one being more willing or more interested than the other. I just think, maybe it comes down to just the personality of the manager itself. I think Kevin Cheveldayoff is a little bit more cautious. And that's not to say that, Kyle Dubas is, willy-nilly throw everything to the wind. Clearly that's not the case, but I think the Leafs, with what they're facing with their contract scenarios, where it's Zach Hyman and Freddie Anderson pending UFAs, some changes coming. You're probably not going to be able to keep or afford Hyman. The flat cap makes it interesting for Freddie Anderson. I think they're in a position where they're in first place. They've been in first place almost, wire to wire. I'd be totally floored if they don't make a really significant move. Now the Jets are going to try to, but if it doesn't materialize or it's not at the right price, they're not going to do it just to do it. So, I think that's the real big difference between the two.
For me, Frank, as a guy that's watched trade deadlines faithfully, for you personally, is it a case of you working the phone all day, or is your phone just lighting up all the time with little tips and insider info?
A lot of it is me carpet bombing contacts. Like I go through really my entire phone book throughout the course of a day, which is like, it's saying something. And I'm constantly bombarding people, asking questions, following up here. There's a lot of moving targets to it. That's what's actually the toughest part, is like you take your eye off the ball on something going on over here, and then there's a move here, and then you forget about this one, and then all of a sudden someone else breaks it or has something on it. So there's always a lot going on. You're hoping for as many tips and tidbits as you can get from your friends and sources. And then the rest of the time, I mostly spend the day after the deadline or the day after free agent frenzy, basically texting and calling all these people, and some of them that I hadn't talked to in weeks or months, saying like, hey, I'm really sorry that I was, bugging you. Thanks a lot for everything. And there's a lot of apologizing and
some gift baskets out.
Some flowers out there.
Can I ship you a case of wine?
How competitive is the sort of insider industry there? Like when you see someone else, maybe not one of the TSN guys because you work for them, but like when you see someone break a piece of news that maybe like you were even close on, do you sit there and you're like, God damn it, like, I was so close. How did that guy scoop me?
Yeah, and a lot of times I'll actually I'll text one of them, be like, "Great job, fucker! Like, way to go! Like, I can't believe you had that. I was this close," and vice versa. Like, there's a nice little banter that goes on back and forth behind the scenes. We all know each other. We've worked with each other, around each other for a long time in the same circles. The hockey world's so small. When we go away, a trip, Stanley Cup final, if we don't meet up for a drink, we'll meet up for dinner. But it's really competitive saying all that. So it's friendly, but also competitive. So we're, in our group chat, we've got an insider group chat. It's myself, Darren Dreger, Bob McKenzie, Pierre LeBrun, and our managing editor, Steve Dryden. And so we're constantly, that chat's going on all hours of the day, 11, 12, midnight. And that's like in, now regular season, clips, hits, suspensions, anything going on, any tidbit we're kind of sharing, trying to, hey, maybe you heard something about this that I didn't, or, I'm going to do this and check on that. Can you call this guy? And so there's all sorts of that stuff going on at all times. And then we're all kind of in the loop at the same time of what's happening elsewhere out there from the other competitors and newsbreakers. And so we'll chirp each other in our own chat, and there's a lot of fun stuff that goes on. So that's what makes it interesting and fun. And, I just love working with the guys that I work with. What
is semi-retired Bobby Mack like in that group chat? Is he just a shit disturber now?
He is. And that's not really all that different. Like, he's so helpful, and he's seriously just the best guy in terms of having someone on your team that's always looking out for you, has your back. But we'll be in the throes of trying to get a trade, or, we're working on a big news story, and we're sending stuff back and forth. And then all of a sudden it'll be like, Bob, Bob's in Florida, and we'll get a pic from Bob at the pool. And we're like, I look out my window, I've got a giant snow mound. Like, I'm not doing anything. It's the dead of winter. And Bob's like, I'm at the pool. I'm like,
So we got a glimpse. I got to ask Frank, we're a few weeks into the DFO rundown now. We got a glimpse behind the scenes on the insider front. How are you dealing with these aggressive outfits that Jason Gregor is wearing on camera when he is sitting beside you?
I think he's reined it in a little bit because he knows that I'm going to chirp him. But for the most part, it hasn't been really offensive. He had one shirt on that it was really bad. It
the
was
checkered rainbow.
Yeah, that had a lot of different things going on in it. None of them were good. So
the other day I was looking at him and he looked like he was going to be seating us at a table or something,
The maitre d', yeah. Was it the hat? That's the other thing. I'm always checking to see, has he recently shaved his head? Is the chrome dome, is it nice and shiny, or is it stubbly? And it's a good check on hygiene.
Frank, I'm gonna end this with one more serious hockey question. One team, maybe outside of the Canadian division, who you think will be the biggest buyer at the deadline? Who's in the best position to make a big splash?
Ooh, so I'm going through those teams that I think are in the mix: Vegas, Colorado, Washington, Boston, Philly. Central Carolina is a good one because I think they're willing to do anything. I don't think Tampa is going to do anything.
What about the Islanders?
Florida. Yeah. I would say, given the Anders Lee injury, given the cap space that Lou Lamoriello now has that he didn't have, I think he was looking before already. They really want a scoring winger. And I think Taylor Hall makes so much sense there for so many reasons. The Hall at Eberle, getting reunited on Long Island, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I think, if I had to bet one team outside of the North does something really significant between now and the deadline, it would be the New York Islanders.
Frank, man, really appreciate your time, and look forward to some more DFO rundowns coming out in the future.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good to be here and looking forward to coming back.
There you go. That is TSN's Frank Seravalli from the DFO Rundown as well. New episodes every Monday and Friday. All the interviews on ONR are brought to you by Cornerstone Insurance. Check them out online, cornerstoneins.com. Insurance.com, the official insurance broker of Oilers Nation. Frank Seravalli is just a beauty, man. Like, that's a guy, we went 20 some odd minutes with him, but you can fill up 2 hours just shooting the shit with Frank.
The funny part is Frank Seravalli is a guy that, you know, I've written about on, like, based on stuff that he's put out on TSN. I've written about him countless times on the Nation over the last few years. I really, really enjoy the way he puts stuff out. And now the fact that he knows who Bagged Milk is endlessly entertaining to me, because now we are under the same umbrella in some small way. And that is just endlessly fun. I love it.
Colleagues.
We were chatting with him before we started recording, and because he was on Real Life. If you want to know more about like Frank Seravalli and how he got to this stage in his career, because he's still so young to be like a legitimate insider like that. He's like 32 years old. If you want to learn more about that, go to the Real Life episode. It's really good. But when he hopped on our Zoom call, the first thing he said, he goes, "Where's the guy in the truck?" We need to break the news that Chalmers doesn't do this podcast.
Are we going to fly him in for the Christmas party this year?
Oh, absolutely. You play a little shinny with Frank.
It was cool to hear. Like, I like to hear from those insiders because they don't talk about it very often, obviously on TV or whatever, but hearing the stuff about them bantering back and forth, and then Bobby McKenzie just comes in with a photo from Florida.
How do we hack into that chat group though?
Yeah. How do we imagine? Tyler, you need to weasel your way into that fucking group chat, man.
I promise. I will stay quiet. I will stay quiet. I won't say a word. I'll just read.
I'll just put like appropriate GIFs every now and then just to really confirm what they're doing. In the meantime, while we're working on getting into Frank Seravalli's group chat, I'm going to tell you about skipthedishes.ca because it is a Friday afternoon as we record this. It is beautiful. It is sunny in Edmonton. It'd be a nice little time to treat yourself. Maybe take a dip in Lake Bag Milk tonight. Order myself 3, maybe 4, maybe 6 roast beef and cheddars. Why? Because there's an Arby's in my hood that delivers, and I respect it. And I respect Skip the Dishes for giving me the option to get that. So thank you, Skip the Dishes. You will feed me at some point this weekend, and I will tip your driver. Thank you. All right. So just back to Frank really quickly. Anything he say surprise anybody? I mean, I dislike what he says about Nuge. He still says he's going to be here, so that's fine. We'll ignore the first part of what he said about Nuge and not producing. Ignore that.
So much of there's just so much intangibles that come with Nuge that I think is what with why he's sticking around, which is why he brought up the fact that, you know, I think it was last night actually when Connor was talking about Nug, and he said, you know, started selling him on all these little things that, you know, he's kind of looking at the management and going, hey, listen, this guy stays here.
Well, it's not just Connor too. Like Leon has also been pumping Nuge's tires in post games lately, and just since we're talking about it, this is McDavid's quote from last night. Nuge does just about everything out there. He kills penalties. He's a big part of the power play. He's a great 5-on-5 player. Both those goals he has a huge impact on. If he's not there, they don't go in. Obviously a great player and fun to play with. Connor McDavid doing his part to get a contract done. Sorry, Dan, I cut you off.
That's okay. I was just going to say, like, and I was going over our predictions from preseason before we recorded this one. And like, we were all on board with Nuge being a point per game player, and he's not that yet. There's still time, obviously, but I think that's all Frank was talking about, is that he had the opportunity to like skyrocket when it comes to being an offensive player, but you can't ignore the fact that he does play he's the 5-tool player, and you can move him around your lineup, and he's not out of place in any spot, penalty kill, power play, killing, or empty net goals, empty net, offense. Like, it's just, everything there.
The thing with Nuge is, though, like, I would see when people say he's having a really tough season, I have a hard time with it in a sense that 11 goals right now for Nugent Hopkins, that's a 27 goal pace. So over a full season, that is. So, I mean, probably he could pick up some more assists here and there, but like in terms of actually putting the puck in the net, he's kind of right where he always is. Right? So I don't know. We'll see. Frank Seravalli says he thinks that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins will be an Oiler next year. That is good enough for me. Interesting also that he said Tyson Berry will be an Oiler next year as well.
Yeah.
Be an interesting cap situation. I think, again, with another factor that loops into the Barry thing is Clefbaum's health, right? Like, if you think you're getting Clefbaum back at full health by like mid-November, do you not just like fight through the first month of the season and then I don't know. There's a lot to consider, and the expansion draft, the whole offseason, it's going to be a wild offseason. But with that being said, I almost feel like I'm cheating myself by looking ahead too far to the offseason, because this season is so much fucking fun right now.
It is.
There's too much of that. There's too much of people getting worried about what's going to happen this summer. Nobody's actually sitting. Very few people are actually sitting back and enjoying what we're going through right now. It's gorgeous outside. This is right now. Everyone should be like all tingly inside. We're built to know this is like playoff time, right? This is like the last 2 weeks of the season. Every other year, we should be honest. We should be going through our minds right now. Like, this is exactly what we want. We want this type of hockey right now. We're tied for first. What more does anybody want? And all we're doing is worried about what's coming up. Let's go. Let's sit back and enjoy.
Talking about this, because in the wrap up the other day, I'm in here. The other day in the wrap up, I said, I think that we're arguing too much about this kind of just nonsense right now. It's time to stop and smell the flowers a little bit. You know, this isn't one of those years where we're having a death march into the end of the year. I mean, all of us on this podcast have watched the Oilers be out by fucking Halloween. I remember specifically one year we were at the Pint in the back room there. It was Halloween. The Oilers just got dummied, and we were just like, fuck me, they're already 6 or 8 points out of it or something. Like, this is not that. Let's enjoy it a little bit, people.
And it's not we're not just putting these to wins together with a bunch of luck either. Like, this is legit victories.
I tweeted this during the Leafs game, the second Leafs loss during that 3-game losing streak. Try and remember how mad you are with these 2 losses to a team when the Oilers have won 4 games in a row next week, and these 4 periods are in our rearview mirror. Like, we definitely as a fan base lose sight of the fact that, like, I don't know, like Rick said, this is a first place team, and you know, people were predicting that the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to run away with this division and hide away by mid-season, and it was going to be all over. And it looked that way a little bit to start, but the Jets and the Oilers are right there with the Leafs, and the Leafs aren't showing me that they're an elite team right now. That's for sure.
This wasn't on my my to-do, but Dan, you've inspired me for a conversation, because this came up in the Beatcast last night. And if you don't know what the Beatcast is, I go post-game live on Instagram after the game every night. But the question came in last night about who is going to miss the playoffs from this group that maybe is going to be a tough one. So right now we've got Edmonton and Toronto tied for first with 40 points. Toronto gets the tiebreaker because they played 3 less games. Okay, fine. Then you got Winnipeg at 38 points. Then you've got Montreal at 34. Vancouver's right behind them at 32. Calgary there at 31. Obviously, Ottawa's not really in contention. So to me, you've got 3 teams fighting for that one spot in Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary. Obviously, there's a long way to go left on this season, so that could change. But as of right now, today, March 19th, Tyler, if you're looking at those 3 teams, who's grabbing the 4th and final playoff spot?
Ooh, there is still a long way to go. Ways to go, like 23 games.
Way too early predictions. Way too early predictions today on March 19th.
I'm going to go ahead and say the Habs hold on to it. Right now, they're 4th in points percentage. They are 3 points up on the Calgary Flames, and they have a game in hand on Calgary on top of that. They've sputtered a little bit, and I don't think they're as good as they were when, you know, people were calling them a juggernaut 2 weeks into the season. I actually predicted the Habs to miss the playoffs at the start of this season. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say the Habs get in, but it'll be barely over the Calgary Flames. Like, that one will come right down to the wire.
Again, I know we're way too early. Like Tyler said, there's still more than 20 games left on the season for everybody. There's light years to go in terms of all these are 4-point nights, but we're doing it anyway. Dan, you got 3 teams fighting for 4th. You got Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary. Who takes it?
I don't even think the Calgary Flames should be in this conversation. I think that the Flames played really well for Daryl Sutter for a little bit, but I don't think that their effort level was sustainable by the team that I've seen before this. It's not like Daryl Sutter came in and immediately was like that bag skate turned these players into amazing athletes. Like I don't buy it. I just think it's a good storyline for them for a couple of weeks, but it'll be over after that. I think that the Vancouver Canucks end up in that 4th spot.
What?
I think that, yeah, I know. But when you watch that team, out of those 3 teams, the best goalie to me right now is Thatcher Demko. So for me, you know, I don't think Braden Holtby's that bad of a goalie either. He's not as bad as he has been to start the year for them, for sure. So I I just have I have the Canucks there. I like Dominique Ducharme, big Mooseheads fan here, but I just don't think that he's able to take that Habs team. That Habs team, I said it at the start of the year, they don't face adversity well. And as soon as there was a little bit of trouble in the water, it went poopy for them. So I think Vancouver Canucks are my fourth place team in the North Division.
There are 3 teams, 1 spot.
They're 4 points back of the Habs, 2 points back of the Habs with 4 games more. Yep. That's a big hill to climb.
That could be 8 points. Sorry, Dan. Montreal. And Montreal has Vancouver's number a bit too, right? Like Toffoli's scored about 137 goals on him this year. Any type of time that Vancouver is going to come back, they were going to beat Montreal. They're probably not going to get it done. I agree with you though. The Calgary is definitely closer to Ottawa than they are anybody else. I honestly think they're broken from within. I think they're broken from within. They have their best players. They kind of like disappear when the chips are down. Monahan disappears. You don't even know if he's on the ice. I think there's something there with Matthew Tkachuk, but I think at the same time, there seems to be something in the dressing room where he's falling out of favor with some guys. Your dressing room is broken, man. That team is broken. And then you're looking at 2 teams. It's Vancouver and Montreal. And I said at the beginning, I didn't think Montreal was as good as they started and what everybody is saying they were. But I do think they're better than Vancouver. And just, their defense will get them through. But Montreal, and then it's going to be Winnipeg above them. And then us and Toronto will battle at 1 and 2.
This is my prediction. Calgary is going to be in a position to win one of their final games to get into that last playoff spot. But unfortunately, that game will be against the Edmonton Oilers and they will lose. Sorry, Calgary. Sucks to be you.
What is the moral dilemma? And again, people might hate me for bringing up this hypothetical or like I'm cursing the Oilers or something. But the Flames' second last game of the year is against the Oilers. What if the situation is Edmonton is locked into that number 2 spot? They cannot go up. They cannot go down. You're the Oilers playing the Flames. You have a chance to end their season, or you have a chance to give maybe your superstars a little bit of rest. We're not going to have that conversation, but it's an interesting thought.
Draisaitl and McDavid all game, all day. Just
take 45 minutes, like NBA minutes. They don't come off the ice.
Yeah, you just let them run up the score, and then you park them for the rest.
You put up that 7-goal first period, and you move on.
Our friends at Tourism Jasper want you to go check out the mountains this spring, and I encourage you to do it. It is a beautiful time of year to go to the mountains, and there's plenty of stuff to do and be socially distant while you're at it. Whether you're hiking, walking, biking, climbing, canyoning, there's plenty of tours and sightseeing. There's all kinds of things for you and your family to do safely in Jasper. If you're looking to get it done, jasper.travel. There's plenty of options. Go skiing. I had a friend go skiing a couple of weeks ago at Marmot, and he said the snow was fantastic. So it would be a good time to get out to the mountains, do a little ski. Why not? All right. There's a couple more things that I wanted to get to quickly. First of all, Dan, I just want your take real quick, 2 sentences or less. What do you think about Jujhar Khaira's fight from earlier this week? Obviously, tough one. Nobody wants to see anybody get hurt in a fight like that. But Hockey Fights voice, what were you thinking?
Jujhar has not had the same pop since that Cal Clutterbuck fight. I guess against anybody but the Calgary Flames. So when he got caught by Brett Ritchie, I understood, but I also didn't like that Ritchie kept punching him after he took a knee. It made him kind of re-engage in the fight. That's where I think the linesman should step in. The linesmen just kind of pick and choose when they're going to step in. So I don't know. Wasn't a huge fan of the way that it went down, but I know that Jujhar took that, and I respect him for that.
Jujhar's the kind of player that after that hit, obviously no intention by Jujhar to throw a high hit. That's the way it happened. But he's an admirable player, so he was going to answer the bell when he was called upon. The problem that I had with that fight is exactly what Dan said. Jujhar was down on a knee, and that was the time for the linesman to get in there. And then you could have had the point be made. Ritchie came in, stood up for his teammate. It would have been over, but they let him keep going. And that's where that last punch came in and tagged him on the cheek. That was a tough one to watch. I just wish the linesman would have jumped in there.
He gets back up on his feet and squared up pretty much again, does he not?
Yeah, but he did. But he did.
And as a fighter, he's going to want the opportunity to get up and keep going. This has to come down to, like, as the third party viewer, and you're going to be hard pressed to find a bigger fan of Jujar than myself. It's just an unfortunate thing that happens in a fight.
It does. I completely agree with you that it was unfortunate. But my problem is that this is this is where the linesman, that's their fucking job, though. They have to make that call.
That's exactly it, Bag Milk. For me, every
fighter's going to want to get up there.
Every single fight in the league.
Every fighter's going to want the linesman to give them that time to get back up.
Linesmen have stepped in this year because jerseys have been pulled up over players' faces. They've stepped in this year because one player stumbled and hit the glass. They've stepped in this year because the players weren't punching fast enough. Like, there's all these silly reasons that it happens. To me, the one is when a player gets stunned, because you're right, a player wants to get back up, but just like in a UFC fight, when the referee steps in and says that's enough, that fighter wants to keep going, but it's over.
But no, because in that situation, he would have got knocked down with a punch. If he slipped, the refs let him get back up again. This was just a slip or, a bit of a shake, and he lost his balance. It wasn't like he went down because of a punch. There was no type
I don't know.
It
looked like he got...
There was no part of harm that put him on his knee. It sucked.
To me, it looked bad, but then he's punching him when he's down. That's the problem for me.
Yeah, and I get it. You really don't want it, but that happens, man. It's going to happen the other way.
Jujar fell, whether he slipped or whether he got hit or whatever. To me, that was the opportunity for the linesman to jump in and end it. And
if Richie stopped punching and just let Jujar get up, that's a different story altogether too. But he's still punching him while he's down, and that's where it's like that's a problem for me. That's just not fighting. That's punching a guy while he's down.
All right.
But are you going to be saying this? Are you going to be saying the same thing if it's Jujar on the top side?
I've said it. I've said it about I said it about the Carson Soucy fight.
But probably yes, but it's not an Oiler.
But what I would have said is if it was reversed and Jujar absolutely tarred Richie and he got KO'd like that, I probably would have said the same thing.
It's against the code. That's where I'm going with it. It's against the code. You don't punch a guy when he's down.
I just think that the linesman, that's their job. It's their job to make the call, and it really doesn't matter what the fighter wants. As much as it probably does matter in real life, it shouldn't. But anyway, I want to move in. Those 2 sentences or less turned into a lot longer than that.
Real quick, what was the 2 sentences part, sorry.
Real quick, Dylan Holloway up for the Hobie Baker, had a hell of a season in the NCAA. I just want to go around the horn real quick. Tyler, I'm starting with you. What do you make of the folks that want Dylan Holloway coming up to the Oilers? Have we not seen this movie before?
No, they are 100% justified in wanting him up with the Edmonton Oilers. This guy's legit. I've changed my tune on him. Not completely. Anyone who follows my work knows I'm a big AJHL guy. I watched Holloway when he was with the Okotoks Oilers, and he ripped up the league in his draft -1 year. Like, he's a talent. He can score. I wasn't sure if that would necessarily translate to the NHL level after watching his first season in college, but he's getting some opportunity this year. He's taking a big step forward. This guy can fly. This guy has hands. This guy is not afraid to play, in the more physical areas of the game. I think he can be a bigger, better scoring Kyler Yamamoto for this team. Maybe he'll benefit from a year in the American Hockey League, but I think there's a guy here who might be ready to step into the Oilers' top 9 quick. Is that in the next month? I don't know, but I think there's a chance, and I wouldn't hate the Oilers for finding out.
I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think there's any necessarily benefit to having a 19-year-old step into an NHL lineup that is already performing very, very well. Chances are he won't play every night because of how the taxi squad works. Then we'll be potentially burning a year of that ELC because he's riding with the big boys as opposed to getting some at-bats in. And let's not forget, he had a hell of a year in the NCAA. I will never take that away from him. Unbelievable. His NHLE is somewhere around mid 50s in terms of points. That's impressive as all hell. However, I just don't think it's necessary right now.
Might not be necessary, but man, it might spark you. Like, remember when Cale Makar came up to the Avalanche right out of college? And Cale Makar's on another level. This guy's going to win a Norris right away. But Cale Makar came up to the Avs for the playoffs and nothing but. He jumped right into playoff hockey, and he was almost a point a game. And at that time, people were like, you're insane. Undersized defenseman, he's going to get crushed in the playoffs. And he stepped up and produced and sparked that team. I'm interested to see, especially if the Oilers don't go get a left winger at the deadline. I don't know, man. I'm just saying you can do it for a few games, and it would burn a year of the ELC, so that isn't ideal. And ultimately, if, had the gun to my head and said you need to make a call, I would probably keep him out. But I don't blame the people for being real curious about how that would work this year.
Oh, I'd be curious, but I just feel like this is one of those movies where we've seen it before. Rick, Dan, thoughts on Holloway?
Normally, I'd be there. Normally, I'd be there because I do agree that, I don't think it'd be that harmful to him. What I would like to see instead, though, is to go down to Bakersfield to finish off the season there. And I would actually like to see someone like Benson come up and see if he can't do something on that left side. I think that he's always had the skill to kind of hang with those guys. He's spent this year, so I think it was the Gregor show they were talking to Woodcroft, and he's actually, in order to get a spot in the NHL, he knows he needs to get on special teams. He also knows it's damn near impossible to get on the power play here. So he's actually down there working on perfecting his PK. So I wouldn't mind having a guy like that up here and see, what, if Cahoon does get injured or starts to slip and you're starting to fish around for a guy to play that left side on one of the top two spots, I would consider trying to put him in there, especially if he can kill a penalty. So I think I would put Holloway and then move Benson up, especially for the playoffs. You're going to want to have a bit of a protected, you're going to have those guys up here normally, but they'll still be playing in the AHL. So you're going to lose that. You'll have the taxi squad, which will be normally your black aces around the playoff time, but maybe those aren't the guys you really want to put in the lineup. Maybe there's a guy from the AHL you'd rather have there in terms of playoffs when not worried about the regular season. And I think that's kind of where a guy like Benson fits. So I would bring Benson up and then let Holloway do whatever he can do in the AHL the rest of the year.
Before we move to hot and cold performers, Dan, last word on Holloway.
Yeah, I'm kind of indifferent. It's one of those things. If you bring him in, it could be an addition without subtraction, but it also could just be a tough thing for a kid, and it's not his shtick just yet, and so then he loses some confidence there. So yeah, I don't mind. You can bring him in just to hang out with the team after he's all done in college. You can just let him come up and hang out with the team and practice with the team and live with the guys and learn the NHL that way. He doesn't actually have to get into the lineup, but to have him in town for a playoff run and all that, there's all sorts of good things to learn out of that, even if you're not even going to make the lineup.
And I think there's just one more. I agree with that, by the way. There's also the fact that this is Ken Holland's team. And historically, that is not the kind of move. Bringing a player into the NHL that quickly is not necessarily a Ken Holland type thing, but we shall see. If you have thoughts on Dylan Holloway, you're listening to this, hit us up, ON Radio Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Mr. Yaremchuk, we're running late. Please get your buttons ready. It is time for the Deuce Vodka Hot and Cold Performers of the Week. We want to thank Brett Kissel and Deuce Vodka for making this possible. They are delicious. I don't know that for sure. Deuce Vodka is delicious. I have had that. Go to deucevodka.com. Liquor Connect is there. They've got a store locator wherever you can find it. It's delicious. Make yourself a cocktail. Drink responsibly. As we do every week, we start with our veggies and the hot and cold performers. So I'm going to start this off. My Deuce Vodka cold performer of the week is every single one of us at Oilers Nation that worked on Rick's birthday shirt and still misspelled his name fucking anyway. If you had any idea how many sets of eyeballs looked at that shirt and still misspelled the last name on it, you would laugh. We were all just like, you got to be kidding me. The fact is, on the design, Rick's last name was spelled probably 3 or 4 different times before we finally settled on one that was still incorrect.
My sister looked at the picture and said, hey, at least they got the last name right. And even I had to tell her that they missed it. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm getting kind of old. And I haven't used it in 20 years. But yeah, even she thought it was spelled properly. So I'll give you guys the break there.
So my Deuce Vodka cold performer of the week is everybody at the Nation that worked on Rick's birthday tea.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
60% of the time you spell Rick's name wrong all the time.
Yeah, that's 1,000% accurate. Rick, I apologize. Happy birthday, buddy. Dan, you're next up. Deuce Vodka cold performer of the week.
My cold performer of the week is going to go out to the Buffalo Sabres, who are just an absolute dog poop team. It's one of those things too for me. I think Oilers fans in general, we watched a guy like Ralph Kruger get a job back in the NHL. Got really hopeful for him. I think most of us around this table enjoyed his time here in Edmonton and thought he had a better chance if he hadn't got fired on Zoom or Skype. But yeah, for the Buffalo Sabres to have fired Brian Rolston, Ted Nolan, Ken Bausma, Phil Housley, and now Ralph Kruger, and still haven't been able to figure out that it may not just be the coach's fault. You're my cold performer of the week.
Are you thrilled? I'm not.
Tyler, you're next up. Deuce Vodka, cold performer of the week.
My cold performer of the week. I think we've even this whole process has gotten cold performer before, but it is the NHL's goaltending waiver carousel. Anton Forsberg's cross country tour continues.
Unbelievable.
If you missed it, Forsberg's year, signed by Edmonton, expected to be their third goalie. They try to send him to the taxi squad. Carolina says, nope, we'll take him. They claim him off waivers. He doesn't even leave Edmonton because 2 days later, Carolina puts him back on waivers. Winnipeg claims him. So he goes, okay, I can make that drive. He goes to Winnipeg. He stays in Winnipeg for a bit. And then they put him on waivers. And now he's in Ottawa. But not only is he in Ottawa, Ottawa now has 3 goalies hurt. And Anton Forsberg might be playing. I don't even care, though. He's been thrown around. He's been through too much. This whole waiver goalie carousel thing, it is absolutely nonsense. And it never should have happened, NHL.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
I'm liking the new buttons that you got here. I like this. Rick, wrap us up. Deuce Vodka, cold performer of the week.
Well, I think everyone saw it on Twitter yesterday and social media everywhere, but the NCAA, someone put out a video of, they're in the bubble for the March Madness and whatnot, the men's side of things with their training facility and their gym and the workout center and everything looks pretty top of the line and perfect at what you expect for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Then you turn around, you look at the female side of things and it's laughable. Like it's absolutely, it's atrocious. It's horrible. It's embarrassing. It's everybody involved in this should lose their jobs immediately. There should be no questions asked. And I know they're a corrupt organization. Okay. Like no one's trying to make them sound out.
Allegedly in your opinion.
Yeah, allegedly in Rick's opinion. Allegedly in Rick's opinion.
It's so bad. Like they rob from people, like rob them.
Allegedly.
And then all of a sudden they go around and they show this blatant difference in male to female athletes, from the gyms to the workout to the catering to the swag bags. Like I promise you, the old men calling the games are eating better than the ladies playing. It's absolutely embarrassing. Every single one of them that had anything to do with this should lose their jobs. It's fucking brutal.
Why are you the way that you are? I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
The fact that they came out, yeah, that was good. They came out
either
and explained that they didn't have space for the gym equipment.
Oh, such BS.
Like what? The girl, the girl who showed everything is like, hey, look, it's right here, And then look, all of this is just like a half a gymnasium, open space.
And then
like it's just fucking flat out lies.
Yoga mats, like that's all they do. Yoga mats.
It's crazy.
Dude, fucking irate, and there's not one person of any type of status who can call them out that will call them out. Like if you're like nobody should be fucking playing. They should just turn around and walk away. Every fucking player should turn around and walk away. Although I would never actually expect them to do so.
I couldn't make a free throw to save my fucking life. And it makes no sense that I have a better gym in my house than what the ladies are getting at the NCAA tournament.
That's ridiculous. Fair point. I have a rowing machine.
It's ridiculous.
They didn't.
It's ridiculous. All right, we're flipping the ledger. We're going to the Deuce Vodka Hot Performers of the Week. This time around, I'm going to start with Tyler. Tyler, your Deuce Vodka Hot Performer of the Week.
I'm going to give mine to a player that struggled at one point in the last week, but has bounced back nicely, and that's Ethan Bear. I was one of the people who hopped on Twitter and said that turnover he made in the Flames game can't happen, and I acknowledge that he's been struggling so far this year. But since that bad pinch, Ethan Bear has played 2 of, I believe, his best games of the season. So I want to give Ethan Bear some credit here for turning things around the way he did after a rough game against the Flames on Monday. He followed it up with 2 really, really good performances in back-to-back games. So Ethan Bear, I'm proud of you, and you get my hot performer of the week.
Put some respect on my name.
I was listening to the boys on State of the Nation that goes live Tuesday afternoon, and it was an interesting debate where you guys were talking about stats versus eyeballs. Because if you looked at the stats from that game against Calgary, Ethan Bear, the fancies really, really favored him. However, if you watched it, there was just some errors that were that he doesn't normally make, that were costly. Yeah. And I think that was an interesting conversation you guys had about why you need to probably have a mix of both of those forms of analysis. It was again, State of the Nation, Tuesday afternoons, the boys go live all over the place. Dan, you're next up on my screen, your Deuce Vodka Hot Performer of the Week.
Well, we gave a little bit of a cold performer to our Nation group chat, or Nation Gear group chat, and I'm going to give a hot performer to our Nation Gear group chat. We just dropped the teaser on Oilers Nation's Instagram and Twitter. This Oily Boy design might be one of my favorite shirts that we put out ever. I think it's just, we're having a ton of fun this season, and kind of coming back to a conversation earlier there where we were talking about enjoying it. The Oily Boys are going deep. They're going far, and I hope Tyler got the button. Let's see. Did he do it?
What the? Oh.
Dem Oily Boys.
Wheels up. Ski skirt.
We're having fun. The Oily Boys t-shirt, my hot performer of the week.
Oily Boys t-shirt should be up on nationgear.ca very, very soon, my friends. We have got a couple of flavors coming out, but it's going to be staggered. So watch nationgear.ca. Oily Boys t-shirts are fantastic. Rick, your Deuce Vodka hot performer of the week.
There's a lot of people involved in this one, apparently. So we'll give it to everybody that had something to do with that t-shirt. Then we got the Sharps, the Stepankos, and the Kramers, who all pitched in together and got me the third jersey, a nice 13 Puljujärvi.
Unbelievable.
I blew me away. I had no idea anything like that was coming. I had no idea those shirts were coming out. So everybody that was a part of Wednesday and everything that had to do with Wednesday, I had to give it to them. So thank you very much to absolutely everybody involved.
Hey, if you could give us that spelling again, Rick, that'd be great.
Yeah.
No problem.
Like I said, at least 3 or 4 variations of the last name went on that t-shirt at some point. And shout out to all of us for not knowing how to spell jack shit. Real quick, how was the birthday on St. Patrick's Day? It's always an interesting day for Rick's birthday because it is St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, it was fun, man. At the 4-hour early cutoff, I think saves me in the long run. But I think the body also kind of understands what day it is. So it's got a bit of a defense mechanism set up. So I can put back a couple extra drinks in that day. We don't need to talk about how many it was, but we got a win out of it. So that's all that really matters.
That's excellent. Again, happy birthday to Rick. Wrap things up. My Deuce Vodka hot performer of the week. There are 2 in my life. The first one, Tyler, have you downloaded Beeb's new album yet? It is straight gas.
No, I'm excited. That's on the weekend playlist though.
Justin
Rick, did you buy it on iTunes?
Yeah, track by track, 99 cents each.
I'll find it. I'll send you a link or something.
Rick's going to jump on LimeWire and download that baby as soon as the podcast ends. Justin Bieber, new album, straight fucking gas. But my second one, and this was completely unexpected. I was having a good day already today. Oilers won last night. They won both games in the back-to-back set. That makes me happy. Bieb's new album, already talked about it. But then my old man rolled up to my house and I didn't know he was showing up. What did he do? He dropped me off a bag full of Mundair sausage. I was like, Dad, when did you go to Mundair? He's like, I don't know. I'm bored. I'm retired. I don't got shit to do. I was like, I respect this. I respect it. And then I was happy enough with my sausage. I'm going to air fry the shit out of it and I'm going to enjoy it. Then 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, he shows back up at my house with probably one of the most adorable little fresh loaves of bread that I've ever seen. And I cannot wait to turn that whole thing into garlic bread. Thank you. My dad and Justin Bieber are the Deuce Vodka hot performers of the week.
Yeah. Okay, I might be
Justin Bieber.
Fuck, I hope so. I might be alone on this bagged milk, but here's a suggestion for you. This is what I tend to do. I'll take, the ring's a big semicircle.
Yeah.
I'll cut, maybe a little more than a third of it.
Yep.
And I'll sit down and eat like a banana.
Absolutely.
I
didn't know if I'm not the only one,
How can you not?
I was the only one doing that. But it's a good 1/3 and I'll just sit like a banana, man. Watch TV.
I also do that. And I'm so glad this came out. You have no idea. Because last time I did it, I finished up my meat banana and I just sat there with a sense of shame. Like I just fucking ate like a half a ring of garlic sausage. Nobody does this. But as it turns out, My boys are here for me.
I'm a thick boy, and this is probably why, but like one of my youngest memories is me sitting in a Costco parking lot when my dad left me in the middle of summer inside a car with deer meat sausage, and I crushed an entire thing of it, just like an entire meat banana, and crushed that whole thing sitting in the car.
I love it. I love it. Turns out, big garlic sausage family here on Oilers Nation Radio. Tyler, as a Ukrainian on the podcast, I imagine your life is just full of wonderful sausages.
Kubasa.
Yes, please. I'll take some.
Yeah.
I will take it all. Thank you very much to everybody for listening to Oilers Nation Radio today. A very fun one. Thank you to Sherwood Ford, Skip the Dishes, Tourism Jasper, Deuce Vodka, and Cornerstone Insurance. Thank you to Frank Seravalli for giving us a little bit of his time and taking us behind the scenes on what it's like to be an insider as we approach the NHL trade deadline. Again, I'm looking for more reviews. If you listen to the podcast, if you like it, you hate it, let us know. I will read them. I promise. There are some new ones that I didn't get to today. We'll get to those next week. No problem. From all of us here, this is Oilers Nation Radio, episode 129. Wrap it up. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Shout out, Davian.
Best wishes.
Thanks for listening to Oilers Nation Radio, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media to stay up to date and never miss a podcast.